What's good, everybody? It's Jordanplayspickle back at it again with another video. Today we have a very exciting review, and that is the Vatic ONI. Now the ONI comes in two different models, the Flash and the V7, and I compare these shapes and sizes to other paddles in the market in my first look. So if you want some of that comparison, go back and look at that video. The Vatic ONI Flash and V7 are the first two models in the Vatic ONI line, this being the launch edition. And there will be two more models following it with longer handles, featuring a 5.5 inch handle rather than a 5.3 inch handle. However, they will retain the same overall length and have less face room to do so. The Vatic ONI is Vatic's attempt at a Gen 3 paddle and is a paddle I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. We are going to go over some specs first, and then we will go further into the rest of the review. For the Vatic ONI Flash 16mm, we have a surface of 5 layers raw Toray T700 carbon fiber. We have an average weight of 8.0 to 8.3 ounces, mine coming in at 8.2. The total length is 16.3 inches, the width is 7.7 inches, and the grip circumference is 4.125 inches. The grip length, as mentioned, is 5.3 inches. The Vatic ONI Flash has a swing weight of 114 to 117 and has a twist weight between 6.4 and 6.55. The V7 also has the same face material and has an average weight of 8.1 to 8.5 ounces, has a total length of 16.5 ounces, a width of 7.5 ounces, and that same grip circumference of 4.125. The grip length, again, is 5.3 inches and it has a swing weight between 119 and 121 and a twist weight between 6.65 and 6.75. As mentioned, the ONI is a Gen 3 paddle and has a different construction than either the Yola or the Gearbox prior, and features an almost spatula-like design combining both foam and the traditional polypropylene core. Now that we have gone over the specific metrics of the paddle, I'm going to give you my thoughts on its performance. For power, I give this paddle a 9. We all know that this is the big claim for these new Gen 3 paddles. It's the game-changing power, and the Vatic ONI is definitely not behind. This paddle plays quite a bit differently than the Gearbox or the Yola Gen 3s, but has great power when needed. It seems that the power intensifies greatly on intentional shots, such as drives or punch volleys, and it makes the power a little more easy to control because of this. I would rank the power of this paddle as excellent. It may be a hair behind the Gearbox or Yola paddles, but has a much more consistent and comfortable feeling power behind it. Keep in mind, however, that this does take a little bit longer to break in and fully feel on these Gen 3 paddles. In my testing, I began to feel quite a bit of difference in the power around the 5 to 6 hour mark. For spin, I gave this paddle a 9. It might not surprise many of you because we've had so many great spin paddles released as of late, but this paddle also has great spin. I wouldn't say that this is the paddle's standout feature by any means, but I would say that it's comparable to other high spin paddles that I have played with and is maybe a touch below the Gen 3 Yolas. However, unlike the Gen 3 Yolas, I felt that the grit was consistent on both sides of the paddle and had given me reasonable spin on either side as well. For pop, I give this paddle an 8. This is one of the biggest differences I have noticed from this and the other Gen 3 paddles on the market. While this paddle has plenty of pop, it is not nearly as uncontrollable as the other paddles I have used. The pop is definitely there, and as mentioned earlier, the pop, like the power, is especially noticeable on punch volleys and during hands battles, but it is reined into a usable level. That isn't to say that you won't pop the ball up on occasion or have a bad shot here or there, but rather it is something that you will notice less as you play. This level of pop gives you plenty of room to utilize it in your game, but also gives you a paddle that is approachable and a lot easier to control out of the gate. Speaking of which, for control, I also gave this paddle an 8. While this is by no means a control paddle, it is one of the more controllable paddles I have played with in a while, and that's been a really good thing. While there's a definite learning curve to this paddle, as there is with all Gen 3 paddles, it took me significantly less time to get comfortable playing with it compared to the other Gen 3 paddles that are currently out. Once I got used to the touch and feel of the paddle, I was able to drop the ball well, I was able to dink, and I was able to extend rallies. The controllability of this paddle is something that I think definitely sets it apart from the other Gen 3 paddles we have currently on the market. Another benefit for the Vatic ONI is the sweet spot. I found the sweet spot to be noticeably larger than on the Yola or the Gearbox, and it's fairly large for a Gen 3 paddle. I will stipulate that while this is a very good sweet spot for a Gen 3 paddle, it is not an improvement on the previous Vatic paddles, and there is some instability I noticed, especially with the Vatic ONI flash near the edges of the paddle. In the future, I will try some LED setups to see if I can alleviate some of this, but right now that is my current thoughts about the sweet spot on these paddles. When it comes to the overall feel of these paddles, for me, this paddle felt at home right away. It maintains a lot of that power that I had grown to love from the Perseus and the Pro Power Elongated, but it's a lot easier to control, it's a lot easier to dink with, and it's a lot easier to extend points. Of the V7 and the Flash, my favorite was the Flash because it gave me a little bit quicker hands at the line and also gave me a slightly lower static weight. For me, coming down from a more powerful paddle made this a very easy transition, and if you are coming from the Pro Power Elongated or the Yola paddles, this will probably be the same for you. I do want to mention though, if you are upgrading from a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 paddle, that this may be a much harder process as there is significantly more power and pop to this paddle than other Gen 1 and Gen 2 paddles I have played with. To reinforce this, I let some other players in my 3.5 league try out the paddle and see what they thought. And while a lot of them appreciated the power and the pop that the paddle provided, most of them struggled to control it and were unsure of if this would be a long-term good fit for them. Another issue that a lot of the players had was the weight of the paddle, as mine are on the heavier side at 8.2 and 8.3 ounces respectively. If you are a player that's sensitive to weight, I would for sure try to see if I could try out the paddle first to see if this might be an issue for you. The weight was something I even noticed upgrading from the Yola, which comes in at a much lower weight of 8.0 ounces, so that is something to keep in mind if you are considering this paddle. But for everyone else who's not worried about the weight or the power or the pop being an issue, this might be my favorite deal on the market right now. It gives you the benefit of the new technologies and the amazing power that you see in the Gen 3 paddles, but doesn't do so in an uncontrollable package, but rather it almost moves it to an all-court package as far as Gen 3 paddles come. While this is still a power paddle, by all means, it is much more approachable, much more controllable, and much more easy for me to recommend for most people. The other benefit of this paddle is the price is so much more affordable for most people, coming in at $150 after discount JORDANIRWIN. It really is a paddle that I think most of you can't go wrong with. To end this video, I'm just going to go over a few comparisons to other paddles that people asked about, and these are my thoughts. If you want a lighter, more controllable paddle with a similar shape, you can't go wrong with the Bread and Butter Loco. If power is all that you want, the Gearbox is still a great option, and you can probably find it used at a good price. It does, however, have a much lower sweet spot. And if power and spin are a combo you really care about, the new Yolas could be for you. Another comparison that people have asked about a lot is the Double Black Diamond, and I would say the Double Black Diamond leans much heavier into the all-court aspects of a paddle than this one does, but does have a very large sweet spot. Well, that's all I got to say today. I hope this video has been helpful for you. I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know the Vatic ONI as much as I have. It's one of my favorite paddles out right now, and it's one that I'm going to be using as my main paddle for the next bit. I'm very excited about this paddle. I think that we're going to be seeing these more and more in rec and tournament, and I think that it's a paddle a lot of people are going to like. As always, thank you for engaging with the channel. Be sure to leave any comments that you have, any other questions that you have, or any suggestions that you have below. I hope you have a great day. God bless.